For over 40 years, I've had the privilege of watching video games evolve from simple 2D Pong and 8-bit games like OG Mario to incredibly immersive VR games like Half-Life Alyx. The progress we have seen in technology and entertainment is worlds apart from where it all started. I can only imagine in the next 40 years what will come to pass if mankind doesn't blow itself to smithereens. It's a crazy notion to think about, that I've been alive to witness just about the entire arc of the evolution of video games. We've certainly had some great years in gaming in my lifetime. 1994 gave us Donkey Kong Country, Final Fantasy VI, and Super Metroid. 98 saw the likes of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Metal Gear Solid, Resident Evil 2, and StarCraft made its debut, along with Baldur's Gate, which somehow led to a series of them. And 2010 had the mind-blowing Red Dead Redemption, Halo Reach, and Mass Effect 2. But nothing would compare to what we saw last year. It felt like just about every month we would get hit with another blockbuster. I've been doing this YouTube shit since early 2019, and of all the years for me to lose my steam, I had to enter a funk in the great gaming year of our Lord, 2023. But DDG is back once again, and before I can move on to any further projects, I must reflect on some of the greatest hits of 2024 I never got to speak about. In a year where it was just one hit game after the next, I am going to quickly rank and review the ones I played. While you watch, be a legend and drop your top 10 games in the comments if you have an opinion. These are my top 10 favorite games from last year, starting with 5 runners-up I never got a chance to play, in one of the most historic years of gaming we've ever seen. One that may never be topped, at least not for a very long time. Alright, so before we get into the top 10 list of my favorite games that I've played from 2023, I feel it would be totally unacceptable for me to make this video and not talk about some of these other games that I didn't get a chance to play from 2023. We had some really just awesome releases last year, and I of course couldn't play all of the games, and so these will be 5 runners-up of games I didn't get a chance to play in 2023 before we move on to my top 10 favorite games that I did play. So we're going to quickly run through, rapid fire, through the 5 games, runners-up of games I didn't play. I've got some talking points here of things to say based on reviews of the games that I've seen and friends playing these games and some other things that I've seen online. So while I haven't played these games, I have gotten a good feel for them enough to be able to speak on them. And these are games I would certainly absolutely want to play. I just couldn't for various reasons, whether it was not enough time or didn't have access to these games because it's on a PlayStation, I don't have PlayStation or whatever. So we're going to quickly run through my 5 runners-up and then we'll jump into my top 10 list for 2023. But before we do any of that, I don't usually beg for subscribers, guys, but I am so close to hitting 2,000 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to me if you could just help me hit that milestone, and then I'll be happy. Then I won't care if I get any more after that. I just really want to hit 2,000. So if you're enjoying this video, if you enjoy some of the content that I make, please hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. You'll be notified as soon as one of our videos drop. Yeah, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the 5 runners-up of video games I didn't get a chance to play 2023. Alright, so first off, we've got Super Mario Bros. Wonder, released on October 20th. And I love these Mario games, man. I cannot get enough of them. I've been playing them since I was a little boy. I played the original way back in the 80s, way back in the day. I love Mario. I've just always been a sucker for these games. I haven't played them all. I've played most of them. I never played Super Mario Odyssey and some other games, but the side-scrolling ones are really some of my favorite games to play, and I've played them a lot. We had Mario Maker 2, which came out several years ago, and that really scratches my itch for a Mario game. And I remember thinking to myself when Mario Maker 2 came out, like, why would we ever need another Mario game? And while that's not a mainline Mario game, it's like you could do so much with that game. There are thousands, if not millions, of custom created maps that people have made in Mario Maker 2, and I just remember telling friends and talking about, like, why would we ever need another Mario game? Like, this is all we need. What else is there to do? Like, why would we ever need another one, right? But sure enough, they have done another reinvented mainline Super Mario game, and mainline Mario games are the ones that have Super in the title, for anyone that doesn't know. So this is kind of an homage to Super Mario World. Mario Bros. Wonder is. And the game looks sharp, vibrant, and uses a wide variety of colors. So the game just looks incredible, really pretty, with the broad use of the color palette that they got going on there. You got some online multiplayer in Mario Bros. Wonder, so that you can do 4 players, I believe, 4-player co-op. Instead of just the couch co-op thing going on, you got some online multiplayer there. Mario has these different forms and abilities, such as the use of like a grappling hook that he can use, or any of the characters can use. Then you got Elephant Mario in this game, and I'm not sure if I love Elephant Mario in Mario Bros. Wonder, but I'm sure a lot of people do. He's cute, I get it. Just not necessarily a big fan of what they did there. There's really no reason. They don't really touch on why he's Elephant Mario in the game. Didn't really need to, I guess, but sure enough, he is there anyway. This is just another Nintendo game that, in my opinion, is too easy for its veterans. Although I haven't played it, this is what I'm gathering from what I've seen and read. A good example would be that new Kirby game that came out, maybe Paper Mario. They're just too easy for veterans that have played these games so much, like myself. You can probably really breeze through it easy. When I watched a review of Mario Bros. Wonder on IGN, I saw a comment in the comment section that I really wanted to just talk about real quick, or just bring up really and mention, from Biosaga Forever. This was on IGN's Mario Wonder review, and he said, "This is the strength of Nintendo. They don't need high-end graphics or sophisticated combat systems in their games. They built the Switch to accommodate games like these, and it works well for their target audience." And I thought that really hit the nail on the head for why Nintendo does so well for a console that's kind of limited in its capabilities. And he's right. It's just games like this, man, they're just home runs every time. Moving on, we've got Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon, which was released on August 25th, 2023. And who doesn't love a good mech game, right? You got the Mobile Suit Gundam anime and games. You got Mech Warrior, whole bunch of different mech type games to play. And I've never played an Armored Core game that I can remember, but I have been playing War Robots on mobile, so that game on mobile is pretty fun. That's the game I've been playing to scratch that Mech Warrior type itch, War Robots on mobile. From what I understand, Armored Core 6 has got bland storytelling and a weak main character, so not a lot going on there. But the gameplay is the real meat on the bone. Combat is fun and fluid with easy, intuitive controls, so it's really easy to just jump in and handle your mech. You got really sick mech upgrades and lots of ways to customize your mech. And it's got about a 15-hour long campaign with New Game Plus, which is typical in a FromSoft title. And then you got 1-on-1 and 3-on-3 online matches. So Armored Core 6 looks like a really fun game that I could sink my teeth into. I wouldn't say it's a game of the year or anything, or it would even necessarily get into my top 10, but it looks like a really fun game. Absolutely awesome game that I would love to play, and I was close to downloading it a few times. I just never did. So keeping it moving here, rapid fire. You know we got to talk about Final Fantasy 16, which released on June 22nd, 2023. I would have played this game, but alas, I have no PlayStation. But from what I hear, it has an outstanding soundtrack, one of the best in the series, people are saying, and I'm not surprised, man. Final Fantasy music, soundtracks, and Final Fantasy games are just top-notch. Needless to say, it's a beautiful looking game. These games are getting so good at just looking so gorgeous. It's almost pointless now to touch on how the graphics are, but Final Fantasy 16 is excellent in how it looks. But its appearance, it comes off more like Game of Thrones to me than a Final Fantasy game. Like if you just walked in and saw someone playing it, you wouldn't necessarily know this is a Final Fantasy game. And that was one of my biggest gripes with the game when I first saw it and first heard about it, that it doesn't necessarily look like a Final Fantasy game, but it does look good. And then of course you have chocobos and classic summons in there that remind you when you see them that it is indeed a Final Fantasy game. It has a massive world that is almost too big in its size and scope, but thankfully the game uses a great quality of life feature called the Active Time Lore, which is a system that reminds you of what's going on in the game. So if you stop playing it for a while and come back to it, you can use this Active Time Lore thing to figure out what's going on. And I feel like all games should have some version of this, because I do this all the time. I jump around from so many different games. I come back to a game, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So that's a great feature to have. You can only ever use one character at a time, not like Final Fantasy VII Remake, right, where you can on the fly switch to other characters like Tifa and Barret. So maybe one of the only Final Fantasy games that's like this. It's very linear, but it's a long game with lots to do, meaning side quests, and from what I understand, the side quests are quite good. You've got your traditional summons called icons, which are true spectacles in the game, and even fight against one another at times. So think giant kaiju fights. If you've ever watched Pacific Rim, you know what I'm talking about with the kaiju stuff. So the combat in this game, sensational, right? The combat has been taken to a whole other level with adrenaline-fueled, fast and furious action. You got chaotic, yet simplistic mechanics to control with shit like air juggling, jump cancels, and staggering shit going on in there. Lots of cool boss battles, and it's just another Final Fantasy cinematic wonder to behold. Lots of cool cutscenes, gorgeous game, a lot going on in this game. Final Fantasy 16, one of the best Final Fantasy games in a long time, if not ever, though I can't say for sure because I haven't played it. So moving right along, Resident Evil 4 Remake, March 24th, 2023. So all the remakes have been stellar, and Resident Evil 4 is no exception, and it looks like a damn near masterpiece from what I've seen, man. This game looks awesome. The original RE4 back in 2005 was the best of the franchise at that time, very well received. And I remember my brother telling me this story about how he had to work all day, and he came home that night, and all he wanted to do was play this game, and he played the shit out of it all night long into the wee morning hours with the sun coming up, and I think he beat the game in just one shot. Like, he loved that game, man. And I was not as into it as he was. I wasn't as excited for the game, but I sure as hell played it. We played it on the GameCube back in the day, and I really enjoyed it. I played the game so many different times, so many different ways. The Resident Evil 4 VR game, one of the best games on the MetaQuest in their catalog of games. The RE4 VR game is awesome, and I still haven't beaten it, but it's really, really good. Can't say enough about that one. Essentially, you've got a revitalized story with RE4, so many improvements over the original that it's almost like an entirely new game. It's insane what they've done here. You've got the ability to crouch now, which is great, using your environment to your advantage, like luring enemies into certain areas or exploding barrels. Great graphics, of course, rich in detail, and then you've got really exceptional sound effects in this game, like the sound of the chainsaw I saw in one shot. It's really good with the sound effects there. And Capcom just never fails, man. They may be my favorite video game company. You know, Resident Evil 4, although I've played this game so many times, and that's why at first I wasn't I really need to play this game. It looks fucking great, man. I'm gonna have to play this one for sure, and soon. Next up, and lastly, Spider-Man 2 on October 20th, 2023. So I played the Spider-Man Remastered game for about 30 hours, and damn near bought a PS4 just for this game when it first came out. So I really wanted to play this Spider-Man game. And I didn't bite the bullet on getting a PS4, and I decided, at some point it'll come out, and sure enough it did. And I was stoked when it finally became available on Steam. I love that game. I played it a bunch. I'm going to play it a hell of a lot more. Spider-Man 2 is essentially double the size of the map of New York City, and the scale of the game is almost double, if you can believe that. It got an 83% Metacritic score, and 85% of Google users like this game. So you got two Spider-Mans in this game. It's primarily Peter Parker's story, but you got a lot of Miles Morales mixed in there too. I didn't play the Miles Morales game, but I was going to at some point. Now I don't think I probably will, but the combat is very similar to the first game and probably the Miles Morales one. I can't say Miles Morales. With some advancements and tweaks in there. There's definitely more going on with the combat, to be sure, and it looks like a lot of fun, man. Just awesome. And so now you got Venom in the game, and the Venom symbiote suit for Spider-Man, which is sick. You can do some really awesome shit with that. You got electric abilities now. I'm not sure if that was in Miles Morales, but you do. More enemy variety. Web wings, which I'm not sure if I love the whole web wings thing. I feel like you should just be swinging around and not flying around like Batman or whatever. But nevertheless, it's there. An excellent story in this game through and through. Lots of cool boss battles. No co-op multiplayer though for this, which we all think is a missed opportunity. I'm seeing so much of that on Reddit and all over the place. How you cannot have co-op in this game. It just would make so much sense for Miles and Peter to be able to have 2 players play this game, man. Just damn, it just really sucks that they didn't do that. Got about an 18-hour plus storyline with optional quests, but there's just not enough improvement in the side missions, man. They could have done more with their side quests, and from what I'm seeing, just didn't hit the mark on that one. And then I'm in the game, so look at that, pretty cool. Lots and lots of sick outfits, just like the first one. It's not perfect, but Spider-Man 2 is really, really good. And so that's it. That's all I'm going to say about the runners-up. Really awesome games that I wish I would have played, and I'm sure they probably would have fallen into the top 10 somewhere, somehow, if I would have played them. But nevertheless, I did not. So now it's time to get into my favorite top 10 games of 2023. Let's do it. Number 10. Coming in at number 10, we have FZero 99, a game that scratches my competitive itches in a really fun way. I gotta say though, I'm almost embarrassed to put this game in a top 10 list for 2023 when we have so many other incredible titles to choose from. But I legit only played 10 games from last year, so I kinda had to include it, and I can't put games on the list I haven't played before. That would be stupid. Now let me be clear. Back in the days when I had my Super Nintendo, I always wanted to enjoy FZero, but just couldn't get into it. I got much more out of Mario Kart and Star Fox than F to the Zero. Who knows why? I still don't have a clear answer for that. Maybe it was the graphics, maybe it was too boring, I don't know. But when I heard they were doing one of these 99 games for it, like they've done for Tetris and Pac-Man, RIP Pac-Man 99, I was intrigued and kind of excited. Maybe this time it would finally click for me, and to my delight, the 99 formula works exceptionally well for FZero. Honestly, in my opinion, it's been a novel success in each one of the 3 games bearing the 99 badge. Racing against 98 other drivers on the classic maps is hella fun. Or at least it was hella fun. These days, the matches I'm finding have about 10 to 20 actual real drivers, and the rest are CPU AI players. But when it was chock full of real players, it took some considerable skill to get into the top 10. FZero 99 is great for quick gaming sessions when you want to kill a little time, and you're usually racing in under 5 minutes from booting the game up to getting in a race. The 99 version of FZero has lots of different game modes that keep it fun and fresh, with fast and fun competitive action, making it damn near impossible to get into first place. FZero isn't groundbreaking, it isn't a huge game in size or scope, and we've seen the 99 thing done before, but I think it works well for this old school 16-bit racer, and breathes life back into it once again. I don't play it a ton, but when I do, it's always a good time. Number 9. I remember when my brother Dan first told me about this game back during one of our old podcast episodes. I believe it's when the first trailer dropped for the game, and I distinctly recall being genuinely excited for it. They're making a game about Pinocchio with a dark and serious tone to it? Brilliant. And to top it off, they're making it a Souls-style game, which I've been getting more and more into with my love for Elden Ring now. But I gotta say, something about this shit just didn't land for me. I don't know if it's the pacing of the game or that the character feels kinda limited in what he can initially do, but it's just not grabbing me the way I hoped it would. It also doesn't help that I'm stuck at this one part early on in the game, and I can't get past it. It's fucking pissing me off, okay? That's the problem with these linear Souls games compared to Elden Ring. At least with Elden Ring, if you get stuck somewhere, you can try something else. But not in my Lies of P situation. To date, I've only put around 15 hours into it, and I feel like I'm forcing myself to play it. I do recall some cool moments and beautiful shots of Krat Central Station and Elysian Boulevard that impressed me. The game certainly looks good enough, and I do kinda dig the dark, gritty world, but it's almost too dark and tough to see things at times. I feel like this is more a me issue than the game not being good. I feel like most people who enjoy Souls-type games would enjoy this one. Perhaps one of the runners-up I mentioned could surpass this game in ranking, but I didn't actually play any of those, and I have played this. So, of all the games I've tried in 2023, I gotta put Lies of P in second to last place position, just based on the fact that I'm not feeling compelled to play it very much. Number 8. Are you pissed off with my list yet? If the last few didn't annoy you, I'm sure this one will certainly do the trick. Ah yes, the great Dungeons and Dragons style game, and the 2023 Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3. Dropping just a few months after Diablo IV, this game was highly praised for being super deep in its storyline, its structure, and the ways in which you can play it. My good gaming buddy Chris fell in love with this shit. Like, if he could fuck the game and have its little goblin children, he would actually do that shit. He literally begged me to play it and review it. I got a full-blown dissertation of text messages about how expansive it is, and how you can do anything you want, and how much better it is than D4, and blah blah blah. Now, leading up to this moment in time, I had already seen trailers for it, and was considering playing it, but for whatever reason, it just didn't feel like my cup of tea. I'm not a huge Dungeons and Dragons nerd. My brother most certainly is, but aside from some basic knowledge that I mostly learned from Stranger Things, I don't have a ton of experience with D&D. And so, something about the lore and style of the world that is BG3 just didn't entice me to try it. But I aimed to please, and so I downloaded it and gave it a go for my dumbass know-it-all friend. I legit spent like over an hour making my character blow my freaking brains out. And once I finally got the game going, I was impressed with its opening sequence of events. BG3 certainly looks beautiful and starts off very strong. But as I continued on, I was overwhelmed by its sheer level of complexity. My guy wasn't kidding. This game is deep. So much so that unless you immerse yourself in it and make every effort to learn how to play it, you're gonna struggle. And of course, because I am constantly jumping around from game to game, every time I would boot the fucker up again, I felt lost and confused. The battles are turn-based, which I like, and the different camera angles you can pick is kinda cool, unlike D4's super close or very far away perspectives. But the battles can be difficult because oftentimes you have to take advantage of enemy weaknesses with specific abilities or use certain tactics to succeed. I keep trying to play it, hoping each time I do, I will get hooked and finally get going with it. Perhaps my opinion of it will change and one day I'll do a proper review of BG3, but right now it's just not happening. However, I do see why people love this game so much. It absolutely deserves the praise it gets. It's a mind-blowing experience that just feels so open to how you can approach and play it. The unparalleled freedom is remarkable, and it is just so incredibly well developed in its story, with extensive voice acting work for each of the main characters and townsfolk. Tons of different side quests, lots of beautiful locales, and all the different races, deep combat mechanics, and a great soundtrack. This very well could be the most perfect game ever made, but still manages to somehow bore the shit out of me. The map is frustrating to navigate. The different menu options confuse me. The inventory system isn't bad, but isn't great. I think I'm just too stupid for this game, and the learning curve is a lot even for me. Sorry Chris, but your gem, your beloved Baldur's Gate 3, gets a goddamn 8 on the stupid list, but I'll keep trying, buddy. Number 7. As I have already done a full-fledged review on Street Fighter 6, I will keep this brief and plug my own damn video in one of my own damn videos by saying go check out my full review for SF6 if you want to hear my initial thoughts. I put like 200 hours into making that goddamn thing, but in a nutshell, as Street Fighter games go, it's pretty good. Better graphics, adjustments to the combat system, and the implementation of the drive gauge and counter system, which lies at the heart of Street Fighter 6. My initial impressions of the game were good, and I have played roughly 50 hours off and on since its release. A little light on the amount of characters to choose from when it first dropped, but the create your own character story mode was supposed to make up for that fact. Not that I really got much out of the create your own character mode, I just found that it was too boring and simply couldn't get through it more than just a few hours. To touch on the multiplayer, well unfortunately at this point the people who play have gotten so good it's hard to go back to after some time off and compete with a lot of these players. Upon launch, I was able to win quite a lot and felt like a champion of Street Fighter. Nowadays, I can still hold my own and get my victories, but the competition is fierce, and when I lose hard. Each new iteration of Street Fighter revamps how its core characters handle and perform. Some skills and abilities a character has in one game might not be in the next, and unless you're a hardcore fan of the series, you may not even pick up on the nuances and differences on how these characters are rebuilt from one game to the next. But painstaking efforts go into refreshing the core gameplay mechanics, and SF6 has its own unique vibe to be sure. While it may or may not be my favorite of the bunch, it certainly is a great game for the franchise. Jokes aside, my old review still holds up today, so please feel free to check that out if you'd like to hear my thoughts on the game after its initial release. 7th position feels about right for SF6. Number 6! Coming in at number 6 is a game receiving high marks and praise from just about everyone who plays it. With a 96% user score on Google and a very positive review on Steam, I present to you the turn-based RPG Sea of Stars from Sabotage Studios. Going into it, I was really only told one thing. It's similar to Chrono Trigger. Similar to Chrono Trigger, you say? Sign me the fuck up for that. And well, it is very much like Chrono Trigger. From the way the game presents itself, and the way in which it plays, even things such as the 3-party member max and timing your attacks to add more damage. Wait, that was never a thing in Chrono Trigger, but I always thought it was. With enemies you can see instead of blank random encounters, it is clear Sea of Stars draws its inspiration heavily on our beloved classic SNES game. The game looks beautiful in its art style and has a great soundtrack to accompany it, and the 2 main characters of Zale and Valerie have an endearing, cute little journey to embark on. Sabotage Studios added some simple yet effective elements to what on the surface could be perceived as old and played out gameplay mechanics, such as using magic without magic, aka live mana, which allows our heroes the ability to boost by using regular attacks to collect mana orbs, and cooking at campfires to create items to heal and regen magic points. The game is fun and delightful to play, but its initial lead-in where the children are growing up and training was a bit boring for me. It was about an hour or so of fluff and sewing and more sewing. But once you age the kids up and start the real journey, you will begin to see the game shine. From there, it pulled me in more and more, and I finally understood what all the praise was about. Sea of Stars is a sharp-looking game with fun and different gameplay mechanics. It's one I'll be going back to often. And with it being available on Xbox Game Pass, those of you who are paying for that service and love old school RPGs made modern should certainly give it a try. Number 5. 5 open-world Forza Horizon games, 8 motorsport realistic driver sims, and I have played nearly every single one of these damn things. I've logged thousands of countless hours in Turn 10's arcade and racing sims. So, what do I have to say about the franchise and this latest entry after all that time behind the wheel? Not a whole lot, to be honest. It's a freaking racing game for Pete's sake, but I'll do my best to try and add something useful to this quick review. Focusing in on the motorsport division, this latest entry marks the 8th one of the lot. So then why isn't it called Forza Motorsport 8? Because this is a reboot of sorts. At least that's what they say. Over the course of the years, each iteration has produced improvements to graphics, game physics, and the addition of new cars and tracks. Turn 10 has been refining the overall structure for years now. But ultimately, what we get here, and have for some time, is an NBA 2K or Madden type situation, where the foundation of the game was built years ago, and each new game only produces minor improvements and adjustments. Although for this latest reboot, I feel like I've read somewhere that they rebuilt the game from the ground up. But what this new entry really should be is a culmination of every Forza game that has come before it, meaning it should have every car and every track that has been available throughout the series. But that's not what it is. There's nothing much special about the Forza reboot compared to Forza 7, at least nothing I can really see. But as driver sims go, Forza Motorsport 8 is solid, just like the last one. The way the cars handle, the sense of speed, and of course, the way the game looks are very much polished. I can't compare the Forza series to Gran Turismo because I haven't played a Gran Turismo game since like GT2, but these racing games have been my go-to for my racing needs for nearly 2 decades for a reason, because they are great. This game might not make sense for a 2023 top 10 for a lot of you, and I get that, but for me, keeping Forza alive is important, and I've been playing the reboot quite a lot. There's just one thing that this game desperately needs to really push it ahead of Gran Turismo, and that's VR support. Something we'll never get. Number 4. What a fucking year 2023 really was. Finally getting a successor to the great Breath of the Wild we had all waited so long for. But at that time, I still was not ready for it. I have never taken so long to beat a game as I did with Breath of the Wild. It legit took me off and on playing it from around when the game first came out till about January 2024 to complete it. That is almost 7 years, people. I think I may have actually set the world record for longest time to beat Breath of the Wild. I could have finished it a lot sooner, of course, but wanted to find all the shrines, get lots of cool gear, and max out my hearts and stamina and shit. But once I finally smashed Ganon and gave peace to the lands of Hyrule, I was at long last ready to get started on Tears of the Kingdom. Going in, I already knew a good deal about it, seeing as it had been out for months at this point. I had watched friends play it and videos online about it. In the years before its release, I always had this feeling that the next one was going to be more or less the same game with a new story, but I never felt that was a bad thing. Well, what we got was an improvement in a lot of areas, with the way Link can build and manipulate things to the various floating islands all over the map of Hyrule. Unfortunately, I haven't played the game enough to go into any more detail, as I haven't even left the initial tutorial islands. Yeah, safe to say this game might just take me 10 years to beat it this time. But no, seriously, from what I've seen, both online, from videos, and in my short playthrough thus far, the game is great. This might just be the most poser thing I've done all year, placing Tears of the Kingdom at number 4, when I haven't even logged more than 10 hours in this shit. But I know this game is great, and special, and well deserves at the very least the number 4 spot on my list. Might have ranked it even higher, but for whatever reason, I just haven't been pulled in enough to play it more. I will though. Unfortunately, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is coming, so just too many games to play. My ADD can't take this shit. Number 3. Starfield sits comfortably at number 3 as one of the most enjoyable games I've played coming out of 2023. Developed by FZero Game Studios, known for the Fallout games, the player character joins a group of space explorers who venture to various corners of the galaxy to acquire mysterious artifacts. I actually had no knowledge of this game until days before its launch. Luckily for me, it was available almost day one on Xbox Game Pass, so I jumped right into it. And although I haven't really played the Fallout games much, except for a little of New Vegas, I can say with certainty it feels like a FZero game through and through. I was a little surprised at one element of the game that I did have preconceived notions of before even playing it. The space exploration of Starfield is not at all what I was hoping for. Having played a good amount of Elite Dangerous, I was fully expecting Starfield to work a lot like Elite does in terms of its space exploration. What we get is a very simplistic approach to flying between solar systems and galaxies. Even landing on planets, in a word, well, sucks. Everything is teleportation. Want to visit a new system? Hit X and travel there with a quick scene of jumping through hyperspace. Want to land on that planet? Hit X and you watch your ship land. No moving into the atmosphere, no interstellar travel. It's all fast travel shit. Even No Man's Sky had more attention to detail in these elements in this regard. I mean, who wants to play a game like this where everywhere you go is as easy as fast traveling there? Now, since I wrote this initial script, there have been some changes to the game through a major update for Starfield in May of 2024, and I will address that in just a moment. But to continue talking about the game in its base form, the space battles are somewhat basic as well. Although being able to target specific ship systems and moving into position to dock with them is a nice touch. Where the game shines is in its story and side missions. There's tons of shit to do in Starfield. Lots of places to explore, of course, and it always amazes me in a game like this how much time and effort goes into dialogue. So many people you can talk to that have various things to say and different options on how you can reply to them. The graphics are very well done, and the atmospheres of planets are gorgeous. Characters look realistic enough, and again, to touch on the dialogue, the voice acting comes across strong, no matter who you're talking to. As a first-person shooter, or third-person if you wish, the game is fun in its combat. And my god, the amount of different items to pick up everywhere you explore is just mind-blowingly impressive. It borders on too much, in fact. It's literally impossible to inspect and go through all the items scattered about as you go. Suffice to say, each area you explore has vast amount of items and materials, and it is truly jaw-dropping the attention to detail this game has in certain aspects. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Starfield did have a massive update drop in May of this year that addressed some quality of life issues and other things, such as the ability to toggle the dialogue camera on and off, and new tabs in your container and barter menus. It also includes updated surface maps, new gameplay options, and new ship interior customization tools. There are also various ways to mod the game as well. Going back to that problem I talked about previously with the space exploration side of Starfield, apparently there is this new mod that addresses it, but not necessarily in a way that I myself would appreciate. The new Astrogate mod offers autopilot and remote takeoff, making space travel more comfortable. It features different modes available for autopilot that ease the pain of the long cutscenes that happen during travel, and in a nutshell, just makes space travel in general simpler and easier to do. So while it's nice to see a mod attempting to address this aspect of the game, I would still like to see something more along the lines of Elite Dangerous with how you get around the galaxy. If that's even possible with these mods, I don't know. From my very basic understanding of how the mods in Starfield work, the variety of them pertain to quality of life fixes, bug fixes, and weapon and shipbuilding modifications that make the experience a lot more enjoyable. We also have some Starfield DLC arriving potentially fall of 2024, so I'll be on the lookout for that as well. I also forgot to mention that the soundtrack for this game is actually quite good. Composer Inan Zur, definitely not saying that right, did a fantastic job with a score that is right on target for the atmosphere that is Starfield. Usually very mellow and melodic, the music never gets too carried away, but is always just right in setting the tone and mood for your galactic journey. There is just so much I couldn't mention in such a short review. There's a reason it ranks number 3 on my list. Starfield is enormous in its size and scope, from character creation to the vast number of ships to choose from and different ways to modify them, to building your own stations and weapon mods, to the gargantuan universe with hundreds of thousands of planets to venture to and explore. With a roughly 40-hour campaign, there is simply too much to touch on in this video, but needless to say, the game is special. Some people say Starfield is a masterpiece. I don't know if I would go quite that far, but Bethesda's new gem certainly has had me coming back for more time and time again since its release. And every time I start playing it again, it usually results in me going on a several-day bender as I progress further and further through the universe that is Starfield. The game could be better with its space exploration to be sure, but what it excels in is still compelling enough to keep me dumping hours of my life into it. Number 2. You had to know this list was going to be totally bonkers when the first game showcased was fucking FZero. Now I'm going to be even more controversial and piss even more people off putting a freaking DLC in second position. Is this right? Nope. Do I care? Nope. This is my list, and I can do what I want. So, let's talk about Dead Cells, one of my top 5 side-scrollers of all time. In fact, I had a whole video scripted out for the release of Return to Castlevania to talk about not only the DLC, but to re-attempt covering the whole game in its entirety. I wanted another chance to do a proper review of the game after the debacle that was my Why Isn't This Game Popular episode. Never got to make that video, so I'm taking this opportunity of putting a DLC in the damn list. Sue me. At this point, the game is officially over in its updates and DLC, and the team over at Motion Twin Evil Empire have moved on to the next project, the Rogue Prince of Persia. But they left us with a masterpiece of a game in Dead Cells. Nearly 6 years after its initial release, the developers stunned us all by honoring the franchise this whole damn game was founded upon. Symphony of the Night was a direct inspiration for Dead Cells, and you can tell the team put a lot of love, hard work, and dedication into this edition. From the moment you start the game, you are greeted with the glorious depiction of Dracula's castle with the message, a gateway to a striking castle has suddenly appeared, and an imposing warrior called Richter asks you to help him vanquish the great evil within. Oh fucking yeah, let's go bitches! From there, I immediately went over to the sound tab and switched the game's music over to the Castlevania soundtrack, which is great, but it's also worth noting that composer Johan Lawlin has made his own fresh renditions of these classic tunes, which are done so very well. To hear them, just leave the regular game music setting selected. As you drop into the familiar dungeon, nothing seems to have changed much, until you find a note letting you know our vampire slaying hero awaits you somewhere down in the dungeon. A few more steps, and vampire bats sweep across the screen, letting us know somewhere down here is a path into a very familiar world. It sets the tone, and I could hardly wait to find my boy Richter, smash a few enemies, explore for mere moments, and voila! Richter needs our help, and he's found the right man for the job, and that's me. On to the castle outskirts. The developers did a phenomenal job remixing the base game with the very thing it was based upon. Castlevania looks wonderful in Dead Cells pixel art, and it is at this moment you feel as if all your years playing the game has been leading up to this. The safe room's custodian, Shanoa, who we know well, greets you as you begin to get the look and feel of its inspiration. Meticulous detail has gone into every stack of books, every pane of glass, and floating glyph you see. There is so much to take in with each new environment you move into. The atmosphere feels genuine, true to its origins, and makes you stop and look often. They have already done Castlevania justice in this Dead Cells world. And Return to Castlevania is a sizable expansion to be sure. You will get every penny worth of the 30 or so bucks you are spending here. As you storm the spectacular castle floating in a blood-red sea, you will meet Richter, Alucard, and Maria, and through multiple playthroughs should eventually unlock all their outfits. In addition, there are 17 more unlockable costumes, such as Death's outfit. As you tackle the first stage, Castle Outskirts, smashing and punishing your way through enemies, you get a sense that the castle behind is massive, and that this place simply serves as a sort of proving grounds for things to come. The succeeding stages are long, grueling, and the overall journey feels like a classic Castlevania experience. As you play and die you shall, you will slowly obtain classic weapons such as the Cross and Holy Water, with some cool new abilities such as this fancy bat attack. You even get Maria's cat as an ally to help you fight your way through a whole bunch of new enemies from the Castlevania series. Get ready to confront Medusa and Death in a seriously challenging boss battle that must be completed in order to further progress through to reach Dracula. I must say, this one was quite challenging for me, and beating him was one of my most glorious victories in a video game in quite a long time, as I came down to a sliver of health before finally vanquishing him. You can't even clear the DLC in one attempt. After you beat Death, it throws you back into the base game, forcing you to re-attempt climbing the castle by going through the clock tower. That was just a small excerpt from my old script, but I think it serves me well today. Dead Cells has had so many DLCs, adding to the core experience over the years. It's a deep and challenging game with an enormous number of weapons and skill combinations to choose from. So many things to do and places to explore. The action is fast-paced and exciting, and the die and try again theme never gets old, with the stage randomizer always keeping things fresh. Return to Castlevania was a fantastic way to send the game off, as it was the inspiration to begin with. If you have never tried Dead Cells, I beg you, please give it a shot. If you love side-scrolling games, it will not disappoint. And if you love Castlevania, then you are surely in for a treat. Number 1. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have the game that will piss off damn near everyone watching that's made it this far, Diablo fucking 4, bitches. D4 has had its ups and downs since its release, coming out the gate strong with generally positive reviews from critics who praise the game's narrative and atmosphere. The game generated $666 million in revenue within the first 5 days after launch, which I believe set a record for Blizzard. From there, it went downhill fast after its first season called Season of the Malignant. The player base quickly dropped off not long after due to the nerfing of XP and Hell Tides, among other things. Essentially, the Season of the Malignant and the two that followed all had generally the same issues. They were all a grindfest of epic proportions. At first, the character leveling seemed like it would move along quite well, but every time you approached the level requirement needed to unlock a new world tier, things would slow down drastically. Inventory management was a nightmare, as you would oftentimes run out of space in your chest and constantly have to look over what you need and what you could scrap. Item farming in general sucked. It was extremely rare to find a sick piece of armor or weapon. The only time I would ever get great items is when friends would power level me in areas I could not go. And even the designs of the armor and weapons seemed lackluster compared to other Diablo games. Although I did do it a few times, there was never really any reason to buy battle passes or their currency except to get some unique armor or a cool looking horsey. 98% of the time, the game just seemed way too easy, unless you would venture into places you were flat out too weak to explore. Hell tides and occasional bosses have managed to kill me, but more often than not, I was under no real duress. Yellow weapons become useless very quickly. Sacred and ancestral item drops are oftentimes duplicates of pieces of armor and weapons you already have, which I feel should be coded into the game to either never happen or happen very infrequently. And I find myself constantly skipping quest dialogue scenes as they hold no real weight to the story and just bore me to death. In a nutshell, after you have beaten the game in its initial campaign and dug a bit into its first season, you have seen a lot of what the game has to offer. For some reason though, with all the problems and pitfalls D4 has had and all the complaining people have been doing, pointing out glaring, albeit legitimate issues, I have played Diablo IV more than any other game in the last decade. I don't know if I can fully explain to you how this game has hooked me in. I haven't lived and breathed a game like this since Guild Wars. I have played every season, have tried every class, and have probably logged over 3,000 plus hours grinding my life away. It's fun to use different character classes, and there are so many ways to spec each class that a lot of the playability for me comes from each unique experience. Something about Diablo just works for me in a way a game like Baldur's Gate does not. Probably because the game is very easy to play for a simpleton like me. It's not complicated, and it doesn't take a genius to understand it. It's just simple hack and slash fun. A good multiplayer experience to play with your friends. Me and my girl really got a lot out of it when the game first came out. There was a point there where she was playing damn near every day, all hours of the day. We still play occasionally to this day. Sweet's name drop achievement complete. With this new season in full swing, dubbed Loot Reborn, a lot of the issues people have complained about have been addressed, and the game finally feels more polished out and structured the way it should have been from the start. XP gains have been dramatically increased, and while it still can take a while to hit that max level 100, it's much easier now, especially with XP farming and Hell Tides. Hell Tides have really been beefed up and gradually increase in enemy density the more you fight there. All-out wars ensue in these regions as massive armies of demons descend on you, creating spectacles that are truly a sight to behold. Smashing through hundreds of foes in these areas is all too satisfying and addicting, and can be quite difficult to survive at times. The only problem is that oftentimes you lose sight of your character in the hordes of all these enemies. But if you know how to do it right, you can really level up fast in these places. Fine-tuning in different areas and aspects of the game has really improved D4. From things like item drops and skill acquisitions by salvaging items at the blacksmith to get abilities for items at the occultist, to better elixirs and seasonal elixirs yielding more XP gains. But with all that said, I still find myself spending way too much time staring at my inventory screen. It's just the nature of this game and the way it was designed. Trying to find the perfect combination of weapons, armor, and ability types that benefit the skills in your skill bar is a constant struggle. Going tirelessly through all my new items and equipping and unequipping stuff to get the most out of my gear can be daunting. There is just so much to pay attention to, like the skill tree and paragon board, the blacksmith tempering upgrade system, seasonal buffs, potion upgrades, elixir enhancements, and the list goes on. Yellow items are still just about useless once you start getting sacred and ancestral items, and golden rare sacred unique items are still very, well, rare, but too rare if that makes any sense, at least up until much later parts of the game. And I almost always get either gloves or boots and duplicates of these items. It's like the game knows what I have and is trying to piss me off. The camera still only has two perspectives, too far away or too close. Although I said the game is easy to approach and play, which it is, really maximizing your build can be hard to figure out. After all my time playing the game and thinking I was more in the professional range of players, I'm starting to realize I still have a lot to learn in maximizing my damage output and life for my barbarian. I hate to admit this, but my friend Chris has figured out the game far beyond my knowledge, but then again, he plays the shit out of this thing, even more than me. But Diablo IV is good at its core fundamentals. It is pure and simple a fun hack and slash MMO style game with a large map to explore, riddled with dungeons and small cave systems to tackle. Timed events like Legion battles and world bosses and Tree of Whisper quests, there's a lot to like here. The campaign mode had some sick cutscenes from what I remember too. And there are tons of things to grind for, yielding a tremendous amount of playtime. Diablo IV just relaxes me to play it. It just makes me feel good. I can't explain it any better than that. And with a new expansion and character class coming October 8th, something tells me I still have a lot left to get out of this fucking thing. This may be the only 2023 top 10 list on the internet, putting Diablo IV into the number 1 spot. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Let this be a hot take, I don't care. I gotta go with my gut feelings here. And from the amount of time I've played this game compared to everything else that came out in 2023, it's a no-brainer. Diablo IV is my favorite game of 2023. Now available on Xbox Game Pass and discounted often on Battle.net, I recommend giving it a try. It's a great game for gaming couples to spend their time in too. But what's your top 3, top 5, or top 10 list of the games from 2023? Give me a list of your favorite ones in the comment section below. I'd really love to hear what they are. You want to rip me a new one from my ugly ass list? Come at me, bro. I'm right here. Did I mess something up somewhere along the way? Chances are I probably did, so correct any of my mistakes if you will. I hope this video has been as enjoyable for you to watch as it was for me to make. I'll keep grinding on these videos for as long as I'm gaming. So, with that said, we'll be back soon with more videos, more games to play on Double Dragon Gaming. Peace out, you wackos.